Kenmeri, the car behind me here, is a car that I imported. It's been, what, close to a year now. The car came, I've been looking for one, you know, having the Hako, it just made sense to do the next variation of Skylines from Nissan, and the Kenmeri was next, and really, really fascinated by this body. This body is unique in the sense that this is really the first body that grew round taillights, and the roundness shape of the rear end of this car is what has been carried over from all the generations to follow. So it's you know, it's fascinating in the sense that if you look in our R35 today, you could see where that look and where that rear taillight started in the, of course, 32, 33, 34 was really predominant big taillights, and of course the R35, very, very Skyline-ish. It all came from this model, and that's the reason why I've been really fond of it. But the reason why it's here right now is we're here to talk about the modifications. This car came in as a totally virgin Skyline, and you know, Richard here, he's the guy that does all of our fab work, and he has decided, okay, he was willing to take on the challenge, and you know, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of crap from people that say, oh, how dare you cut perfectly good quarter panels, but you know, hey, it was finding the perfect car and then taking it to the level that was going to suit my needs. So, and Richard, I mean, you know what it's all about, right? I mean,
yeah.
These flares, they're fiberglass flares.
They're fiberglass flares. People are definitely unhappy about chopping up this car, but yeah, the problem was it's not a GTR.
Right. It's not. If this was a real GTR, we'd be doing absolutely nothing to it. But it's a GTX, and it's a 1975. You know, this model came out in 73. It's a carryover. The reason why I wanted to stay 75 and early is because I wanted a California title and register it. Anything pre-75, pre-76 in the state of California, you can smog, or it's smog exempt, and you could legally register and title in the state of California. So that was my motivation for looking for a 75, 74, 73. What we're doing is giving it a GTR appearance. Now we're pulling the drivetrain, we're doing all sorts of things. It's going to have an RB26 in it, and we're going the twin turbo. I'm adding a power assist rack to it, and it's going to have, the car came with factory air conditioning and factory power windows, which were all things that I wanted. We're going to do a rotisserie rebuild on this, so it's going to be painted in the color of my choice, and of course the guys at the shop are going to put in their 2 cents on color options. So it's going to be a shop build, but we had to start somewhere, and Richard was kind enough to say, hey, let me do the flares for you, and that takes some effort, because there's a unique way to do the flares.
Yeah.
And you see people just going in and cutting the flare and doing tack welds and letting the actual fiberglass flare conceal all of the cutting and metal work. We didn't want to do that. And so Richard's going to install flanges, and he's going to kind of go over that with us. But I wanted to give you a little history on what we're doing. So yeah, the fronts haven't been done. It looks like you're lining everything up, but
yeah, so I'm taking a few steps to get to where I want to be. I want to make sure my cuts are the right cuts, the initial cuts, the cut I wanted, and not just start hacking away at the car, especially because I don't know what rust can be behind any part of this car, and luckily we've hit minimal rust, if anything.
That was a blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was surprised. Remember, that was the first thing I said when you started doing your first initial cuts. I'm like, how bad is it? And you're like, surprisingly not bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking not even a 1/4 inch on the front, right?
On the front, it almost lines up. If we go up a bit.
So these flares are supplied from a company in Japan. I can't recall the manufacturer's name, but there's multiple companies that make flares for these cars.
Yeah, the fitment was really good.
Yeah,
too.
it's not bad, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the same company that we acquired our Hako flares for as well. So yeah, we're talking about what is that, a 1/4?
1/4 inch, maybe we'll go 1/2 inch in, because we are adding a structural rod all through the cut just to keep the shape. just in case the wheel does hit the fender in the future during compression or something.
It's funny, this is something I meant to mention to you. When we did our Hako originally, we ran into a problem when we did the initial cut. We boxed it in with a flange, but what we ran into was we had a weak spot suddenly.
Yeah.
Because when we cut this lip out, there was a constant flimsy panel. It was on the opposite side, and it would pop in and pop out. And so what we ultimately ended up doing is we added a rod on the inside of this. Since we cut this lip off, we actually made another lip and boxed it, and it brought back the structural integrity, and the pooling, that puddle dent went away after we did that.
It's because the metal just buckles.
Oh, it was insane.
Because
you get rid of that lip. Yeah, it's gone. So I don't know if you're going to run into that, but it sounds like
adding the
you're
rod.
adding a flange to it anyway. Yeah. So coming to the back, now the back required a lot of cutting, right? I mean, we took off what, 3 inches?
We looked at the passenger side. It was about, the cut was about 4 inches down from this location. If you can follow, this body line was actually right around here, across. But the GTR flare just sits way higher than the Kenmeri body line.
I know it does. Well, you know, this has got a really big butt, you know, and that's what I prefer. I love the rear end of this car. It's probably one of my favorite parts to this car. So yeah, you took, dude, that's like 3.5 inches.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And then another 2.5 on the inside.
And this has been, this is old. This is original.
This is old.
So surprisingly, no rust. Now it's interesting because I could see a lot of filler was used here, and I don't see why. You know, obviously there might have been a dent or something, but you know, you could see the thickness of this paint, and of course, there's no rust or any damage to the metal. So in that sense, and looking in here, structurally, I don't see any rust damage. I mean, just putting my flashlight in here, it's all solid metal, which is great news.
Yeah, I think the only section we caught with rust this corner down here, start pushing into it. There's a grommet there, but to the corner of it.
Yeah, I saw that inside.
That's some rust there, and then I don't know if it looks like it might be over the outside.
So you're going to grind all of this?
Yeah,
you're going to grind it down to the metal.
Down to the metal.
Okay.
All the way around this, just so I can get a nice clean weld.
Okay.
One of the issues when you're welding on old stuff that's already had paint or just dirty material, the weld actually sucks in the gases around it. So if this is smoking, whatever it's smoking, it's going to get into my weld. So I need to get rid of as much as possible to get a clean weld across.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah. So the rear flare is just is a great look for this car. And of course, you know, we talked about this lower rocker. You know, on a GTX, it's a skinnier molding. Is that right? It's kind of a skinny molding that goes on the bottom.
Yeah, it's a skinnier molding that extends down a little lower than this GTX molding did.
Yeah. So the GTR molding is a little wider, and it goes all the way across, and it's a black painted molding on GTRs. I'm going to go with that look as opposed to the skinnier GTX molding. Because on a GTX molding, you'll actually see body color underneath it, whereas the GTR molding, it stops, and the color stops at the molding line. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how we go about that.
Yeah, I know, and it may be that we buy, because I don't know that those are available anywhere. And so the plan is, I think, just to find a manufacturer of a molding that's the size we need.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's going to be it'll be a one piece that goes all the way to the fender edge. And in this case, it'll stop at the flare, because the flares come all the way down. And then we'll have to cut it. You know, there's all sorts of American cars that specialize in using moldings.
Yeah.
We just have to find one that's flat, a flat molding that we could, you know, have powder coated in black.
extend or shorten to the right size. Luckily, from what I've seen from actual GTRs, the molding doesn't meet the flare, so
it stops before
it
the flare.
stops before the flare.
And interestingly enough, the Hakos, the Hakuskas had just rear flares. The original GTR Hakuska just had a rear flare, and a lot of people have added the front flares on those. We went ahead and added front flares on our Hakuska, but on the 73 Kenmeri GTR, they came with dual flares, front and rear. The difference being, the mirrors are different. There's a lot of little differences. Obviously, all of the trim is different, but the grille is different. I did acquire a GTR grille, which we're going to install, and we're going to, clean up all the moldings. Am I going to tell people it's a real GTR? No. Of course, it's a GTX, and it's going to be a tribute to a GTR, but we're going to customize this. It's going to be a resto mod. It's going to have, we'll probably end up with a Subaru STI rear diff, and Apexi was great in customizing well, I know you had hands in that too.
Yeah, I've been helping along.
The coilovers. They're custom-made coilovers. And they're doing the fronts next, I guess, right?
We're doing the fronts, I think after body or after the wheels and brakes are acquired.
Yeah, we're going with a 17-inch wheel. This being a bigger body, I want a 17-inch wheel. We're kind of go with the nostalgic look, but I want a breather wheel because I want to put a larger brake on this thing. Yeah. I'm thinking, I would love to have a four pot in the front. Would be awesome.
And it's going to need the brakes.
It's going to need the brakes.
Going RB26 twins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be cool. It's going to be running factory AC. We're going to leave the factory AC unit in there. I'm a huge fan of air conditioning, and I love the fact that it has power windows.
I love the fact that the rears are power windows.
I love that too. Yeah, because you know what? It's funny. If you look at Mustang, right? Ford, it's interesting. Nissan and Toyota, they actually used the Mustang as an example of how they were going to build their cars. If you look at a Toyota Celica, 72, 73, 74 Celica, they very much look like the early Mustang fastbacks. That design, was something that they took from Mustang. And this too has kind of a fastbacky feel to it. It's very unique. But Mustangs had fixed windows, and you couldn't do anything with them in 72, 73. But Nissan went ahead and said, hey, we're going to make our windows electric or at least retractable. So that's always cool. The big thing for me is power assist steering. I want a power assist steering rack, so I'm not sure. Did Alex even say what we're talking about?
Alex was saying we might go MR2 or possibly going with a Audi setup.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So we're going to run a power assist rack in this, which is going to be great. I want this to be a great, freeway cruiser, and I want it to be a really comfortable car to drive, and that's the plan. Is it going to make crazy power? I don't need it to, right? I mean, it could.
It would be hard to put the power to the ground on this car.
That's the problem.
It's going to take a lot of engineering.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely hit the number.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's like, I don't know that I need it to be crazy fast.
No, it's already light. You don't need that much power.
It's gonna be a fun car to build. So guys, stay tuned. Our plan here is to really showcase this build in its entirety. It's got a long way to go. My plan was to get the flares done, the wheels installed, the brakes installed, and then literally do the drivetrain installation, and then put some miles on it before we strip it all apart and put it on a rotisserie and start doing the restoration of the body and paint. So, hopefully this thing, we already have the motor, we already have the drivetrain in place.
I think a fully built motor,
Yeah,
right?
it's fully built, and I believe Alex is using the, I think he's using the, is this one? Yeah, this one's got the BMW transmission going in it.
This is going to take a ZF 5-speed, I believe.
I think so. I think he already has it at the shop.
Yeah.
So we've got that earmarked for this build. And
recently acquired Tomei twin ball bearing turbos.
I saw those come in the shop. Those are beautiful. Yeah. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of overkill. But
it is, but it's going to be nice overkill.
Fun to look at. Yeah. It'll make some great noise, right? And then, we got to talk about exhaust, but that's down the road.
We're gonna utilize as much as the Apexi USA catalog allows us to. Yeah. So, rear muffler, We're obviously going to do their coilovers, custom coilovers, one-off, their intakes for the motor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So there's definitely a lot of parts that are going to be thrown at this car.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
No, I'm just a huge fan of this. And we're going to do a whole series on where the Kenmeri name came from. You know, in the early days when Nissan was transitioning to the next generation body, the history of how it came to be and a lot of the early marketing materials that Nissan used. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned to watch. I think you guys will enjoy very much this car's heritage and how it came to be. But this transformation is going to be fantastic. I am a detail guy, so you know, every molding, every piece of trim, every piece of chrome is going to get replated, repolished, or reworked. I'm not a fan of, you know, you put all this work and labor into making your body laser straight, and then you have these little stainless steel moldings that just have these little waves. I can't speak enough about how important it is to get every single piece of trim laser straight and polished to a really high degree. And so that's our plan for this car. Also interesting, you know, the windshield, the rear window has the stainless trim surround, which is also true to the GTR, whereas in the Hakuska, the trim on the front windshield and the rear window was just rubber with the little thin aluminum insert trim. This car actually has, the GTX shares the same trim as the GTR, so that'll make it a little easier to build this to the standard that I'm looking for. Yeah, a lot more to follow, and it should be fun to see this car come together. It was driving me crazy seeing those little skinny tires on it sitting in the warehouse for all that time. And now that it's going to actually get some big boy wheels and tires and some decent stance, the way the car's going to sit. Yeah, you could take a look at these windows now. The car's coming down a little bit. You can see this aluminum trim is true to GTR as well as GTX. They share the same trim. This was an original white car. It had been painted at some point in its life. You know, typical. It was probably cleaned up and painted to be sold. You could see the paint that it's on it right now. Mine's dirty. It's a much creamier white. The original white had it had a lot less cream color to it. But we removed a good portion of the interior to allow Richard to do all of this cutting. We didn't want anything catching on fire. So
Yeah, we don't want any fires.
yeah, that would kind of suck.
Especially catching these taillights on fire.
I know, right?
I know you mentioned it earlier.
I just love these. I love the back end of this car. And you can already see with this flare on it how cool the flare is going to give it that stance, you know. Yeah, it's a. This car just screams to me in so many different ways. So, moving forward, we just continue to do all your prep work and remove all the paint.
Yeah, we're removing all the paint, making templates for the flanges that are gonna go on the rear, get that nice and strong, and then I'll be updating you guys with videos, just
Awesome.
process videos of what's happening with the car.
I'd really like to showcase, because look, you're really, you're super anal about how you do your metal work, and that's what I love about being here, is I'd really like to showcase all of that stuff. So if you could document all that. We're not going to be able to come over here as much as I'd like, but we'll try to get in here. You give us a call and we'll get in here and showcase some of the flange work you're going to do, because it's one thing to have just a flare on it, but to really, you know, clean up the inside of that wheel well and make it look like it came out of the factory that way is another thing.
Definitely have a big task in front of me.
I know, right? That's going to be great.